Hello and welcome. I am Exolite, and this is my podcast. Today is our fifth and last podcast in the series about 9/11 conspiracy theories. And today's podcast is going to be our roundtable, where we go over the information and talk about if our minds have been changed, if we have new ideas or opinions about what happened. We're just going to lay it on out there and have a conversation like we're sitting around my living room. So feel free, you guys, to post comments in the comments. If we need to see them right away, I will be notified. Also, I want to let you know that from now on, you can call in to any podcast when you become a Patreon supporter. There's different levels. And when you become a Patreon supporter, you'll be able to call in and hang out with me and whoever my co-host is for that night and talk about what we're talking about and give your opinion and your ideas, or tell us a spooky, scary story that happened to you. And so if you'd like to do that and support my channel, go to Patreon. Maya will put the link up. And that would be awesome if you guys want to start doing that. We can have a lot more interaction with the supporters. That would be fun. Is there anything else I need to start with for this we go? I want to say this. I do want to say this. For those of you who are here right now, you probably know this, but just in case you don't, and for anybody listening to this afterwards, my channel is the only channel where you are going to hear original creepypasta and suspenseful stories. It's the only channel where you're going to hear the original. And here's why. There's only a certain amount of places where people can get stories and where they mine them from. And that would be Reddit, Wikipasta, creepypasta.com, and I think there's one more. And the way those work is that once you put your story, a written story, on those pages, anybody is allowed to go and pick them up and read them, which is why you oftentimes hear the same story over and over and over again through different narrators. That will not happen with my stories because A, I write all my own stories. I do occasionally have friends who will submit me a story and ask me to narrate them for them. And in those cases, I do make it known that that has been done. I also never, ever post a written story on any of those web pages so that nobody has a transcript, a written story that I have written myself. So if you know people who are getting tired of hearing the same creepypasta stories over and over again by 50 different narrators, and they would like to hear something original, please send them my way, because I am the only channel that does that. Other channels do occasionally have original creepypasta, but not just strictly their own creepypasta where you're not going to hear it anywhere else. So, I just really want to push that as something that is very unique to my channel. Every story you hear, unless said otherwise, and I think there's been 4 times in the 2.5 years, I have done collabs with Sid Supersidious Creepypasta, but those are collabs that are on both of our channels. And then I've had a couple people give me stories to read, and that's just a handful of times in 2 years. Otherwise, you're listening to a story, I wrote it. So I just want to put that out there. All right, you guys. Are we ready for this? Today we have Rob with us.
Hi guys.
We have Jory with us.
Hey everybody.
And we have Jeremy with us.
Hey.
And we are going through Discord today, and another perk of being a Patreon member is that if you are a Patreon member, we have a room set up for just Patreon members in the chat on Discord, so you guys can hang out together and chat about whatever you guys want to chat about. All right, so I guess we should start off. Does anybody else have anything they want to say before we get going?
Nope.
Okay. We should start off with talking about the facts from Jeremy's podcast and what we learned about that. So, anybody want to go first? Okay, let's all jump at one time. I will go first. What I found interesting was the false flag scenarios that have been used before for purposes that we could later see. You know how history is, you have 20/20 vision, right? And I really enjoyed hearing clear back to Hitler and the burning of the, what's the word of it? What's it called, Jeremy?
The Reichstag.
The Reich.
Reichstag. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And
Not a student of history.
Not a student of German is the word I would say, Jory.
It's in our DNA. Learn to speak it.
Well, it's barely. But so I found that really interesting, that when people think, you know, our leader or our government or people in charge or whatever wouldn't intentionally do something to start something that followed, that it was interesting to see throughout history that it's been used several times, even in the Gulf of Tonkin, which is a well-known fact now, but back in the day, if you had said it, you would have been called a conspiracy theorist. And I really liked hearing about that and how it teaches us to look at who benefits. In the end, who is benefiting. Anybody else?
I mean, yeah, like it's one thing to see that Hitler had, you know, the power and the ability and foresight to do something like burn the Reichstag, but to see the plans of Operation Northwoods, that it outlines our own government's, you know, pretty insidious plans to do things. Even though it didn't occur, the plans never took place. They had official plans to do things that.
Well, and can you explain to the people what that is, in case this is the first time they're hearing about that?
Oh yeah, so Operation Northwoods was, it was first proposed to Eisenhower, and then it was proposed to JFK, and both of them shot it down. And what it was an outline from all the Joint Chiefs of Staff that laid out plans to kind of bait or perpetuate a war with Cuba. They had outlined plans to kill innocents, whether it be American or Cuban, on American or Cuban soil, and blame it on communist aggression, and just basically cause a series of terror attacks, and blame it on Cuba, so that the American people and the government would have a license for war, if you will.
Right, and the issue with Cuba was that Russia was wanting to put missiles in Cuba that could reach the United States. And that's why people, my mother's generation, were hiding under desks at school when they would have a siren go off, was to practice what happened if there was a nuclear attack. P.S. Desks aren't going to help.
No.
So that was very interesting, I thought, also to learn that had been put in place, not used, but still the information had been released through, was that through like a going to court and asking for this information, or was it just released for historical purposes, how they do 50 years after it happened or whatever it is?
I think it was just declassified. It had run its course through classification, and it just got declassified in 2001. Or no, actually, yeah, 2000. 6 months before 9/11, which for people as well, the relevance to me talking about Operation Northwoods in the first episode was to outline they actually had plans to load up planes with American refugees or Cuban refugees and Americans and crash it into American buildings and pretty much kill everybody. And that was declassified 6 months before 9/11, almost as if it was a warning from someone like, hey, government's got they have the mind for it, at least, so watch out.
Right. Yeah, it's not the first time that they've talked about using something like this, and just keep an open mind that it has been floated. The idea to terrorize us, to use it as an excuse to go into a war. Anybody else?
Yeah. I think that if you look really deeply into what you've just been talking about, it's really scary for one thing. But who is, I know we look at the government and we look at the president, whoever that may be at the time, but who is actually making the decisions to do these kind of things?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it was proposed to JFK and the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And who's it proposed by? Who's this sort of shadow government who are moving behind the scenes, pulling and pushing the different levers and knobs, and proposing these horrible, terrible things which has no regard for human life whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, it's scary because I think in that particular case, it was their own people, right? Their own advisors.
Yeah. There was a quote in the exact document that said, "To spill American blood on American streets." That was a quote from them. That was written by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and proposed to JFK. And if it wasn't for him and Robert Kennedy, who knows what might have happened? Because they're the ones who shut it down.
And the famous movie with JFK about JFK and that decision, it was it had something to do with days, the number of days. If somebody is in the chat and can help me think today, there was a very famous movie about this, and it was 72 hours or 3 days of something, in which he was taking the time to mull it over what he should do, and ultimately came to the conclusion that he would not do this, and ended up calling Cuba and talking to them and going through that method, which actually spared the United States from going to nuclear war. We were hours away from being in a nuclear war, and thanks to the fact that JFK wanted to use diplomacy, we didn't end up in that position, which is what. This is a whole other conspiracy theory thing, but that's the conspiracy theory about why people didn't want JFK to be president, was because he was more about diplomacy than, shaking the trees and rattling the trees. Was it called 13 Days, Diabolical Witness? Is that it? Okay. Yeah, I know it has something to do with days, and I should have looked it up before I got here, but you guys go look it up. It's a really good movie. You'll learn something, and how frighteningly close we came, and the American people were completely unaware. So, yeah, he thinks it was 13 days. So, you guys look it up and watch it. It's really good. Yes.
Chase it. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how often during history up to the present day, we have been really, really close to war, the Third World War, nuclear war, whichever way you want to look at it, and we
Right.
haven't heard about it. It could have happened.
Oh, I
lots and
know.
lots of times.
Oh, I can't even think
That's
about
very
stuff like
true.
that. I really can't. Yeah. I always say that, those movies where there's one guy who figures out that there's a virus that's going to wipe out everybody and he has to warn everybody. I never want to be that guy. I want to be sitting on a beach completely unaware and just boom, just get it over with. I don't want the responsibility or the weight or the fear of knowing. Just sorry. And I always joke that because I've lived several times right next to Air Force bases, and I always say if anything ever happens and they attack Air Force bases, I would like to just be underneath it. So I'm a frightful person. What is wrong with me?
This is a dark podcast, everybody.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Okay, so anybody else?
I just want to add that while it's frightening that the government could come up with something that would just benefit themselves, talking about spilling American blood or any government, it's kind of a pattern that's followed throughout just human history in general. Like you can look at any form of rule throughout human history, and it all kind of just plays out the same way. Like there's very few monarchs or just rulers in general that were people who had the best interests of the people that they were ruling. 98.9% of the people who govern us are selfish, excuse the term, dicks who just they further their agenda. They don't care about the people's agenda. So it's frightening.
Mm-hmm.
But we have history that teaches us this isn't something that's new. This is a pattern that repeats over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's a power trip once you're in power. And I think that's why, well, I'm not gonna go off into a tangent. But I think that's why term limits are a good idea because, you can just have the same people in there forever and ever and ever, and they're working to not lose their job as opposed to working for us. But anyway, so I guess we move on. We talk about mine. Was there anything that you guys found that you didn't know or that was particularly interesting or something that stood out about the information from my podcast?
I would have to say, was it Building 7?
Yes.
When we talked about Building 7, I had no idea that there were... My knowledge of 9/11 was really basically the Twin Towers. And I knew, obviously, when other buildings will also come down. But to have just other building really come down, Building 7, which wasn't near the towers, and you have witnesses who heard an explosion, and it you can see the video where it comes down like it's a demolition. That I had no idea. So it's really interesting to hear that while you've got this big old distraction of Twin Towers, they look like they're coming down as if it was a demolition. You got Building 7 so many yards away doing the exact same thing, and nobody talks about it. Why? Why didn't anybody talk about that?
Right. Well, that's very interesting that you should say that because we have a segment where the man who owned that building, he is being interviewed, and it's 27 seconds. And Jeremy, can you put that up for our listeners?
Sure, I can put it up right now. Okay,
now I want you guys to know that you're going to hear it. We're not. So for Rob and Jory, what he's saying is that they came to him and there was massive destruction, and he said that they suggested pulling it, and he agreed to have it pulled, and that they had to make that decision and they pulled it, which is a demolition term for bringing it down. So I want you guys who are here listening to listen to the man who owned this building, him being interviewed.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
All right, that's it.
All right, so for those of you in the listening audience, what do you think about what you just heard? If you guys want to type into chat what you think about what you just heard, I'd be very interested in hearing that. Anyway, first off, about Building 7 being pulled, that's not something you just do. You just don't pull a building. You don't just, hey, there's a building over there. We should just demolish it and have it fall onto its footings. That is something that has to be planned and carried out. You have to put the explosives in the right place to bring it down on itself. And it was already in place. So if that was already in place, and I explained to you the physics, the math, just plain math of mass and velocity and speed and everything that we talked about in a free fall, how is one building, Building 7, ready to be pulled, which is demolished on its footings? And then we see these two other buildings, first and last time in history. 3 buildings free falling, which means nothing was in their way, which means we take a piano to the exact same height and drop it, and it's going to fall the exact same speed. We take a baseball, like Jeremy said, to the exact same height and drop it. It's going to fall at the exact same speed as a free fall because there's nothing in its way to stop it. And that is the speed these buildings fell in. That's math. That's physics. That's not something that you can explain away because they're facts. And I think that when I did that podcast to learn the math and the physics of all of that, and if you are new here and you haven't heard the previous podcast, my podcast is part 2, and it's about the World Trade Centers. You can't dispute math and physics. And any kind of resistance would have slowed the buildings down from a free fall, any resistance. So the fact that they would land as fast as a baseball dropped means there was no resistance. And that's quite literally impossible unless you're removing the resistance as it goes down, which would have to be through explosives. Because like I said 100 times on that podcast, these buildings were built to be hit twice by Boeing 707s and not fall down. And they completely fell down on themselves. So is there anybody else that has any comments about that, about my segment?
Teresa. Oh, go on.
No, go ahead, Rob.
Diabolical Witness says podcast got deleted. Yes. No, not that one. That one is still up. It was our podcast about the Denver airport that got deleted. Dang it. Oh yeah, Maya, thank you. Tell Todd I sent him that new Discord code. So anybody else have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I was just sorry to God, I can't speak tonight. Sorry to interrupt you. I know I forgot what to say. Someone else go in for me now, and I'll try and remember what it was I was going to say, because it was really important.
I think Jeremy was going to speak to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say, I think, it's important to mention that, like you said, it's the first time in history and the last time in history on the same day. Three buildings, 2 planes. The math doesn't add up. Not only that, but World Trade Center 7, the third building that collapsed, that was 2 or 3 blocks away from the Twin Towers, and there were older, much less structurally sound, taller, wider buildings closer to the Twin Towers that did not fall because of office fires. So why that building? Oh, because it was World Trade Center building as well, and they were both. They were in tandem basically.
Right.
So I think that's important, because New York has a lot of old buildings that are not built to stand the destructive events of 9/11. They were way closer to ground zero, and they survived with a lot of damage, but they didn't collapse.
Right. Yeah, and the excuse was that building had been on fire. But, like, the interesting thing is to hear, and I was talking to Jeremy about this before we came on to the podcast, was to hear him say that they made the decision to pull it, and then there's a little video clip that goes with it. And then it's pulled and you see it go down on its footings. And to hear them say they made that decision and they knew that people were in there, even if they were deceased from the fires or something, they made the decision to pull it, is really hard to get your mind around, considering they weren't finding large pieces of the victims, and then I don't know, it's just so hard to watch the towers collapse, knowing how many people were in those towers. It's so difficult anyway. And then to listen to somebody say, yeah, they made the decision to go ahead and pull it. Wow. Which in reality is what it seems like they did for the other towers too. Yes.
I remembered what it was now.
Okay.
From doing all the research and from listening to all the other podcasts, being in the UK and looking at it from the outside, what I can't understand is I've seen different people, people from the fire service, police, lots and lots of different eclectic set of people, whether the emergency service people, the man on the street, everybody has said that they heard explosions.
Yes.
The fire service, especially, because they're in and out of burning buildings all the time. That's
exactly
basically what they do. The name gives it away slightly. Fire service.
Yes.
I can't understand how they can just be ignored.
I don't either.
I've watched so many people making statements and going on camera and saying we were inside the Twin Towers and we could hear the explosions above us, each floor, and they're just completely ignored. The government just ignores them, and it's just bizarre. It's like it's like a film. It's like some kind of weird movie.
Yeah, well, not only does the government ignore them, but pretty soon they're not being interviewed anymore. They're not on TV anymore. Then they're forgotten about. Well, that too. Yeah. They died. And Diabolical Witness said, could that be a calculated decision to avoid it crashing onto another building? Okay, so Diabolical Witness. Yes, of course it could. But keep in mind the planning that goes into demolishing a building. Those explosives were already in place. If you can say, let's pull it.
Now
you have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Not only that, but as I showed on, I think it was your segment, the 45-degree angled cuts in the support beams, that has to be done as well, because if you watch video of World Trade Center 7 collapsing, it collapses in toward the center of the structure. And the way they do that is they cut the outer support beams at a 45-degree angle so that there's no tip, there's no fall over, it comes straight down into its own footprint. And that was
Right.
there's pictures from ground zero of 9/11 with the beams that have that, and there's video proof of that method being used on World Trade Center 7. So the fact is they'd have to go in with these uncontrollable office fires that they can't even get firemen up the
Right.
up to the proper floors, cut these support beams, and then plant explosives, then get out of the building and detonate said explosives. Come on.
Jeremy,
Yeah. So can I just say something? So diabolical witness, I think that it could have been calculated. It was calculated ahead of time, because you can't, like he said, get in there, cut those beams, get the explosives in there, and then suddenly make an on-the-spot decision that we should pull it. That I don't think that adds up. So anyway, yes, go ahead, Rob.
was there people in Building 7? Did anybody die?
As far as I know, yes, there were. I think they were firefighters. I'm not sure if there was any civilian casualties, but I know first responders died at World Trade Center 7. But it's such a hard thing to do a body count for that event. I mean, that whole area was just destruction. So they could easily say that no one died at World Trade Center 7. They could easily say that.
And it did burn for 5 hours. So they did have time to get people out. But there were people, there were bodies in that building. At the very least, there were bodies in that building. And they had no idea to know if those people that were trapped on the floors that had been on fire were still alive or not.
Yeah. And
because the firemen weren't able to go upstairs anymore.
Yeah, and let's just say logically that for whatever reason, based on Larry Stevenson or Larry Silverstein, the leaseholder, based on his logic that there was so much loss of life, we just had to bring it down. Okay, it was burning for 5 hours. You got everybody out of the building safely. So much destruction, we can't save this building. Hey guys, go in there, do your work, come out, and get rid of the building. Okay, based on that logic, which is some pretty shady logic, I don't think anybody would say that that's something that the first responders have priority over, or anybody on that night or day had priority over. They were trying to save people's lives, tend to the wounded, tend to the hurt. It was chaos. So to plan something like that for 5 hours, I don't think is logical, but let's go with that logic. Okay, that happened. They had a plan to bring it down, but not an insidious one, just to kind of cut their losses,
Right.
The problem with that is NIST and the 9/11 Commission deemed World Trade Center 7 fell at free fall speed due to uncontrollable fires. So that's from them. If they lied or Larry lied, who's lying? Somebody's lying. Somebody's not telling the truth. So who's not telling the truth?
Yeah, and who has something to gain? Larry had nothing to gain by that.
Well, he was the leaseholder, and he made a whopping amount of money on the insurance policy.
Yeah, no, I mean by his statement. He was going to get the insurance money regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
So he had nothing to lose by saying that they came to him and talked to him about pulling it, and then they made a decision to pull it. He had nothing to lose in that department. He was getting the insurance money regardless.
Yeah.
So, who had something to gain by having it collapse?
Yeah. And also, I think it's important to, I forget the guy's name. He's got a really weird name. I think he's an Indian guy. He was the lead commissioner for NIST, and he said that World Trade Center 7 was the first time that a building, a modern skyscraper came down due to those reasons. He said this is the first time in history ever,
Mhm.
and not only that, but it classified a whole new type of collapse. World Trade Center 7 was so special that they had to find some new criteria for it. And he said that due to thermal expansion, because of the uncontrollable heat fires, bent the beams and, destroyed
Right.
the structure in on itself at free fall speed. Never happened
Well,
ever before.
And the fact is that we found out during my podcast that bending the beams doesn't make it scientifically or mathematically or through physics possible to fall at free fall. In fact, that causes resistance.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't have fallen on free fall, and it wouldn't have fallen straight down. It would have leaned.
And that doesn't explain molten steel at the bottom of these chambers in these buildings. It just doesn't explain that at all. You have to melt steel for it to be liquid. I hope everybody knows that.
And so just to reiterate, based off of that logic, has there been any other skyscraper building to fall because of those conditions?
There's been one other one, and that was in it was in some Southeast Asian country, and it was a way older building, like way older. But that was the only other one, and that was literally the same year. That was 2001. So
since 2001, no building
nope
has collapsed because of those conditions.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, there was one in Iran, and there was one in India.
Sorry.
And and those were abandoned buildings, had been abandoned for decades.
Exactly.
And not built to withstand 2 707s.
Exactly.
So they're not comparable. And then Diabolical Witness said, I always thought the Pentagon had inadequate weapons that shot the wings off the plane at close range. Do you mean for the Pentagon? I mean, with the plane that hit the whatever it was that hit the Pentagon? And by the way, Jeremy, do we have that clip that I sent you about the Pentagon, the cameras that were there at the cameras,
the video?
Yeah, the video that shows that there was 2 frames removed.
I don't have that video on me, no.
Okay, well, when we get to Rob's Pentagon, I'll talk about a video, and I'll go look for it right now while you guys talk, and see if I can't pull up that video for you guys. So you guys go ahead and talk about my segment, or you can move on to Rob's, whichever one you want.
Move on to mine if you want.
Okay. Does anybody want to say anything about anything they learned? Go ahead, Rob. If you want to go ahead and start talking about yours. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to address was it Diabolical Witness?
Yes.
Saying about the weapons at the Pentagon.
Yes.
I didn't find that in any of my research at all. The wings were shot off the aeroplane.
Yeah, I've never heard that either.
And I did a lot of research. I didn't find anything sort of to do with that whatsoever.
And did they find the wings? I suppose. So did anybody ever find any wings fragments?
I don't think so.
No. No. The only reference to the wings was made by that surveyor, who his name I'm trying to find now. Oh, hang on, here he goes. Do you remember we talked about him?
Yes.
I'll find his name in a minute. He said he saw the marks on the outside of the Pentagon, which were made by the aeroplane wings, but none of the wings were found, and no one else could actually find these marks on the outside of the building, and he seems to be the only person.
Right. And he was also at the World Trade Center, right?
Yeah. So I don't know how he got from one place to the other so quickly, but he did.
Yeah.
So starting with what I found, because I'm from the UK, I've said this before.
Mm-hmm.
I try to look at the facts, not try and be swayed by all the things that I'd read and heard. I did a lot of research, I watched a lot of stuff, I read a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The more that I went through this, and the more that I found out, looking at the facts, the more ridiculous it got. It was so difficult to just look at this from a fact-based, from just a fact-based thing. You can't. It just doesn't. The facts don't tally up with what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you find yourself looking at and trying to debunk the conspiracy to try and keep it normal and keep it not absolutely bizarre. But it's really, really difficult to do it because it's even to the point where the size of the hole was too small for an actual plane to go through. Not including the wings. Forget about the wings. For an actual body of a plane to go through. And also, do you want me to talk about the? I think it would be a good time to talk about the footage, the camera footage.
Yeah, I'm trying to put the link up right now. So,
right.
Okay,
So
I just put the link up. Forget the first one, you guys, that I put up because I don't know what that is. It's a whole bunch of garbage. But the link that I just put up right now is the video that Rob's going to be talking about. And you're talking about the one I sent you. Is that right, Rob?
I am, yeah, from the petrol station.
Yes. No, this one is from the I'm sorry. This one is from the gate. The gate to the parking garage. I mean, the parking lot. Okay. I just put the link up there. So if you guys are interested, after this, you want to follow that link. It's eye-opening. Go ahead, Rob.
There were cameras everywhere. There were cameras all around the Pentagon. There were cameras in a gas station. But a lot of the footage was taken and was never seen again, basically. But some footage has come to light from the security gate, and it shows. Basically, you can look at it frame by frame. I'm not sure how many seconds or what each frame is, but you can look at it frame by frame.
I think it was the 26th frame that they found the anomaly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see what looks like a missile-shaped object. It's very blurred. But then when it comes to the frame where you would see it perfectly, the frames are missing or they've been tampered with. And that's the only footage that would have said it's either a plane, it was either a Boeing 757, it was either a smaller plane, or it was something else like a missile.
Right. And I think that footage was just recently released within the last year or something. Is that right?
It was like 2014, 2015, something like that.
It was that close? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was, for some reason, I was thinking 2017. Okay.
I thought it was a bit, but anyway.
Yeah. So there's two gates that you can drive up to, and whatever you would have to do to get into this parking lot. And there's a camera on one, and then there's a camera on the other one. The first one, the one that we all see that's been released, which, by the way, we all excluded me because during the podcast, I was the only one who hadn't seen that footage before. So this is how I found this video, because I went to go look for that footage. And you see something silver going that direction, but it's blocked by the gate in front of it on the other side. So they showed us that. Well, they got the footage from that other gate, which is unobstructed. There's an unobstructed view from that gate. So they scientists, they went in and they lined this up frame by frame by frame, and you can look at them at the same time and see that it is frame by frame by frame by frame. And when you see the silver thing on the first camera that has an obstructed view because of the other gate, when you see that at the exact same time as you see the camera view from the other gate that was obstructing it, you can see that silver thing, and then there's 1 or 2 frames completely gone. And then they match back up. Somebody went to the trouble of taking out the 2 frames that would have cleared up what hit the Pentagon. Why would you do that? Why would you do that if you didn't have anything to hide? And who had access to this? Well, the Pentagon. It was their cameras.
But also, it's when you're saying, and it's a really good actually way of looking at it, what have they got to hide? Even if you take away this camera footage, why was all the footage from all the other cameras taken?
Mm-hmm.
Even from
right.
Even from the gas station, even their footage was taken.
And they supposedly had the best angle.
Yeah, you know, my husband and I were talking about this. This is the Pentagon. We have satellites. That can zero in and read your lips. The Pentagon isn't the focus of any of our satellites. We could zero in and see what happened, what hit the Pentagon. That those pictures weren't used because they use them all the time for other stuff.
But Tracy, there was satellite pictures of the Pentagon.
Afterwards?
They were infrared pictures of the Pentagon.
Right.
And it shows underneath, quite a way down underneath where the plane was supposed to have crashed through. There was heat pictures of really, really hot burning, but was still going on hours and hours after all the fires on the ground were put out. Basically,
no pictures of what hit it.
No pictures of what hit it. No.
And something interesting is when you look at the pictures of the Pentagon and where this plane went in without any wings, flown by a guy who couldn't back a car out of a parking lot. There's a camera right above it. There's right above that hole is a CCTV camera, a security camera right there. No pictures from that. None. Why not? And that's the thing I want to clear up is that it gives reason for people to doubt when it'd be so easy to clear up. Just don't take the 2 frames of the footage out and show me the airplane going in. It would take, I mean, we saw the airplanes going into the towers. Why are we so sensitive about we can't see the airplane going to the Pentagon? Why? Well, why is the reason that people have a question? Because there shouldn't be a reason why we can't see it. But we can't. It's all taken. It's all hidden, which makes people suspect. And 53.4% of the people in the United States don't believe what we were told about the official story. And it's because of stuff like this.
When I did the podcast, I found that there was a documentary made, and they were looking at from the eyewitness point of view, and they found quite a few eyewitnesses, and 2 of those eyewitnesses were Pentagon police officers. Now they didn't know each other, they didn't work together, but they were chosen because they came forward saying that they had witnessed something, and there was a few other people as well, and they interviewed them all, on their own, so they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
swap stories and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling to work out what the documentary crew was trying to say. So I watched it again, and they all drew on a map where the Pentagon was and where the flight path of the aircraft was, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, at the end of it, they all saw a missile hitting the Pentagon, and they saw a plane flying away from the Pentagon afterwards, after the explosion.
Okay, so here's my question. Okay, first off, 2 comments. My husband says, and what about the people who are smelling sulfur instead of jet fuel? Yes, inside the Pentagon. Secondly, Diabolical Witness says, because the defense measures would be in the film, they cannot show it. Damage should have been much worse at the Pentagon. Yes. What saved it? Well, from what I've investigated and what I've looked up, what saved it was that it wasn't an airplane. But if you say, okay, so let's talk about the fact that you think that the defense measures would be on the film. Okay, I can see that they maybe would be leery about us seeing that. I can get that. But if, like you said, if a plane shot it, if there's something shot it and took the wings off, where are the wings?
And where's the report of that happening?
And where is the report of that happening, right? Yeah. Because we should know that they tried to stop it rather than, oh, God dang it, 45 minutes later and another plane hit and we didn't do a damn thing about it. I'd rather hear they tried to, and is it possible then that a fighter jet went to go shoot it down, missed, hit the Pentagon, and that plane flew off? Is that possible?
Well, Tracer.
Yeah.
The person that was saying about the defense procedures or the
Diabolical Witness.
Yes. Well, I don't see the after an incident and a terror attack like this, I don't see what the problem with showing the Pentagon's defense is, because they were going to have to be changed anyway. Right. Obviously, they weren't working because they're just going to.
Well, that's true. Although he would say, probably, I don't want to speak for you, Brian, but what Brian would say, probably, Diabolical Witness, is that it did work because it didn't collapse the building. It didn't go and kill as many people as the towers. So it did reduce the impact. And you can tell me if I'm misspeaking for you, Diabolical Witness.
I do want to add, when I was looking up information on this particular subject as well, that the part of the Pentagon was struck was also the part of the Pentagon that was within days of having their that part of the building reinforced against terrorist attacks being done. They had started the remodel in the early 90s, and they were literally within days of that entire side of the Pentagon being missile proof or some kind of a weapon proof part of where if they were directly hit with a weapon, let's say a missile's caliber, the damage would be minimal. So just throwing that out there, it was the only part of the Pentagon, by the way, that was at that stage of reinforcement.
I see. Really?
Yeah.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. And Diabolical Witness said that I did explain his position correctly, that what he's saying is if they used a defense, then, it didn't stop it from hitting, but it did reduce the impact. If you look at it from his angle and what they could say and a reason why they could not show it. So, we are considering every possibility and everybody's thoughts on what could have happened. So I appreciate him giving us a differing view that we can discuss about it. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So, can I ask Diabolical Witness a question?
Well, yes.
So, what does he think happened? Does he think is he happy with the official account, official story of what happened to the Pentagon, or does he think that there could be,
a different story?
A different story, and what I didn't add, the reason there wasn't a lot more eyewitnesses is because a lot of people were running away, so they didn't actually see what happened. But and another point, the reason nobody saw a plane flying away, or what wasn't unusual about a plane flying away, is the Pentagon is next, or pretty much next door to an airport. I'm not sure which airport it is, but there's a lot of planes coming and going, landing and taking off, that are in the sky around the Pentagon. So it wouldn't look that unusual, a plane flying away, especially a jet, because it would be gone in seconds.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's what he wrote. He said, Vietnam era defenses were present and used. We will never get the details of what defenses were in place. All contractors and feds have NDAs and cannot talk. But do you think so? Okay, so what I guess I want to ask you is, Brian, is that I'm sorry, I'll stop doing that. Do you believe that it was a hijacked plane and that they used the defenses that they just had available, and so it reduced the impact of the plane? Okay, so I can call you Brian. Thank you. So it reduced the impact of the plane, and so you believe that it was an airplane, and the story of the airplane. You believe that? I'll wait till he types in what he's saying. I think that, well, I would love, and this is going to sound weird, I would love to believe he wrote, I have no data on what was the cause of the crash or explosion. So, we don't know. And I would love to believe the official story. It feels safer, right?
A lot less scary.
Yeah, exactly. I would really love that. But when you see them cutting out just 2 frames that would clearly show the airplane, don't do that.
That footage came years and years after, and it's the only footage they've released, and there's been over 50 cameras in the area that had record of what happened, including dozens that were on the Pentagon itself. That I think the probability of them being able to find footage that, one, shows a plane clearly, and 2, hides the defense mechanisms would be pretty easy. I'm sorry, but I don't buy the whole defense mechanism stuff. I mean, we went step by step exactly what our jetliners and our Air Force was doing at the time. We went step by step telling what the protocol for our military was at the time, telling them how we were trying to fix the situation as it was occurring, what we were doing to handle the hijacked planes and the reports and all that. We were telling the public on the news every day, step by step, what was happening, hour by hour, minute by minute. To say that we're hiding our defense mechanism, I just don't. I don't see that as a valid reason to immediately get rid of 50 plus cameras in the area that had clear record of what happened.
Even just to dumb it down, we were allowing our national television companies to broadcast over and over and over and over again the World Trade Center being hit by a plane over and over and over again. But we couldn't see the Pentagon hit by a plane, but we can watch the World Trade Center over and over again get hit by a plane.
Right. Okay. a couple of things. Jay wants to know what is a Vietnam era defense. So, if you have an idea about that, Brian, you could maybe answer that question. And Todd wants to know: is there any chance we can turn Jeremy up because he's quiet?
Yeah. I'll just pop a compressor on me real quick.
Okay. He says you're much quieter than the rest of us,
Alright.
so he's having a harder time hearing you.
All right, is that better? If not, I can turn it up just a tad more.
All right, go ahead, Todd, and let us know if Jeremy's better or not. Yeah, see, the thing is that they acted so quickly to take the cameras away that I don't know that there was a we need to hide the defense thought at the point. I think it was we just need to hide everything just in case. And because of the way it happened, they were able to do that with the Pentagon, but with the towers, they couldn't do that because it was on a loop.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over again. Not the first one, but the second one at the very beginning.
And
yes, and Todd, he says you're better, Jeremy.
All right, and yeah, I'd even give them the benefit of the doubt, and say, hey, I get it. You just got one of our most protected buildings hit by an American jetliner. Okay, we want every possible piece of footage in that area to see what happened, to see how that jetliner got through our airspace. It's supposed to be protected. If that's what you mean by Vietnam level defenses, is our scrambling jets, and yeah, that should have happened. I agree with you, but it didn't. So what are we hiding exactly? Like, I don't think we have any ground to air missiles that just pop out of the walls of the Pentagon, but I mean, they might.
I hope so.
That'd be cool. I would really hope we have that. I hope we have it now, at least.
I bet they do now.
Yeah, I bet they do now. But
yeah.
But I get that. Okay, you want to get the footage and see what happened. It's 2018. Where's that footage now? You don't need to. Where's that footage going to stay? Are you going to silence the people who are saying or who are crying foul? Are you going to silence them and say that, hey, you can trust America? Or are you going to keep the footage and let the people ponder and give us no answers? Because they didn't. I mean, he says he has data that says that the defenses were used. I didn't.
No, he said he had no data. He said he didn't have the data. He said. So
it's an assumption from him.
So he thinks that. Well, I don't know what his life experience is to have the knowledge, but he believes that it was that they didn't have the up-to-date equipment to use.
Yeah, and I would think it would be irrational to the farthest extent to say, hey, release the footage a day after 9/11, a year after 9/11, but it's 2018. And there's nothing more. You already put case closed on the 9/11 Commission and NIST. You already told us what happened. Where's the footage now? What's it going to show us that's going to hurt us? What's it going to show that's going to hurt? Like, it's it doesn't add up to me.
Jeremy, you're riled up.
I mean, I think it's the problem is when you talk about stuff like this, people are like, well, it's just a conspiracy theory. You don't know. Like, you're just making an assumption. But at the same time, that's the only option the government's given us. They've given us nothing but assumptions. Whenever they say that, yeah, we used our Vietnam level defense mechanisms, and that's why we can't show you the footage, and this is how the plane wings are gone, and this is, I mean, Jory just laid it out plain and simple that they were upgrading that part of the building. That's why the loss of life was so minimal. They had evacuated most of the workers. That's why the loss of life was so minimal. They had measures.
So is that just another coincidence that we saw 3 miracles on one day with the towers collapsing under their footings, and then there was just another miraculous coincidence that the only part of the Pentagon that was evacuated and had been reinforced, that just happened to also be the part where this plane went in.
Yeah.
And then in Pennsylvania, that was just the only plane ever that turned to dust, and the black box was never found. I think that's what causes people to go, it smells wrong and fishy, and the growing amount of the people in this country who are disbelieving it, it's only going to get bigger as, our children start looking into the history of this, and they have access to the internet, not just history books that could be, what is it? History is written by the
Victor.
The victor, yeah. So they can go and look and say, hey, this is a puzzle and the pieces don't fit.
Looking at you, Victor Lyons. Why are you writing that history, man?
Yeah,
Tell us
there
the
you
truth.
go,
Yeah,
Victor.
Yeah, Victor.
We want some answers.
Yeah. Why? What are you writing, Victor?
His last name is Lyons. He's lying.
You lying about this conspiracy, Victor?
By the way, I'm upset that Adolf Hitler didn't come in today and we couldn't give us some of those answers
he's
either.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Well, when you've got some killing to do.
Yeah. So is there any more that we want to talk about the Pentagon?
I think that's about everything that I've got to say.
Okay. Adolf was here earlier. He dropped in and said hi. Oh, is that true, Maya? Oh, that's so funny. That's the strangest thing. Okay. Anyway, I'll never be monetized simply for the fact that Adolf Hitler comes into my chat.
I'm just waiting for him to come into the chat and start promoting Mein Kampf.
Oh no,
stuff like that.
No. I'm surprised they let him create that username. Okay, so we move on.
How do you know it's the username?
Right? It'd be his real name.
Yeah, and Elvis Presley and all those other people that really aren't dead. So do we want to move on to Jory's then? And anything we found that we didn't know about, or?
I just wanted to say with my podcast, I kind of talked about it a little bit with Jeremy afterward. We did Jeremy's podcast, and we did your podcast, and we did Rob's podcast. We were looking at 9/11 through the events that unfolded.
Yeah.
The science behind everything. So when I did mine, I kind of wanted to angle it to more of a human experience of what these people went through that day. Because, it kind of like we understand that people die.
Yeah.
But when I was listening to the podcast, it wasn't forefront of the issue that people died. Like conspiracy theory or not, whether the government behind this or not, we lost a lot of people that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to humanize it to kind of show that we're not doing just because, we want to be anti-government, anti-establishment. We're doing this because people lost their lives. Families were changed forever that day. Not just one or two or 3,000.
Right.
So when I did it, I wanted to convey, these people understood first and foremost that they were probably going to die. And whether or not they controlled the airplane near the end, they did what they could to, at the very least, save their own. Because that's one of the first basic instincts of humans is survival. You want to survive. You want to live. So they got together and they wanted to live. And you can, if you haven't listened to the podcast, you want to go back. You see minute by minute these people getting to a point where they realize we want to live. We need to figure out how to get them, how to take control of this plane. Unfortunately, whether they did it or not, they ended up passing away regardless. But it shows the human experience of what happened on 9/11. Right.
Well, I want to add two things. I want to add that I Brian, for you, I'm glad that you're giving your thoughts on the subject because we asked for that. We asked for people to give us their thoughts and opinions during our roundtable. so that we could talk about it and consider it. And that's exactly, and that doesn't mean only opinions that fit our scenario, right? And also that we wanted to go into this, like, let's clean the slate. Let's go into this and then look up what happened for our separate segments. And then come here today and say if anything changed our mind, if anything added to our original opinion or took away from our original opinion, what happened when we cleaned the slate and went in and looked at it objectively, just from what the facts were. And I appreciate that Brian gave us a different point of view on that. So I just want to say that even though, you know, you were hit with but what about this? And what about that? What about this? What about that? That's what we asked for.
Well, this was always meant first and foremost to be a discussion. It was never meant to be let's do a podcast and point fingers at who did this and this. It was literally just, hey, let's talk about 9/11. Let's do some research, and let's just tell the people what we found. Right. You know, this is information that you literally can just Google right now and find it. That's how I did my research. I literally Googled my topic, found an area that represented what is public knowledge, what we're being told happened on the day of 9/11 as far as Pennsylvania. And then I went and found some place that gave information on what would be considered the conspiracy side theory of what happened today for topic. So I didn't just go and research, okay, this is what all the conspiracy theorists are saying. I tried to approach it in a way of showing, and I think everybody tried to, of what we're being told happened, what people on a different side of the coin believe happened. And it just kind of gives you, the viewer, the perspective of you formulating your own opinion. So, you know, it's like you said, it's only just to be information and for everybody to discuss it. You know, if other people have different opinions, obviously, it's like you said, that's fine. Because unless we're a part of this secret shadow government, none of us really knows what happened.
Well, exactly. And we don't have the insight to, you know, ever know what really happened. Okay, so Jay wrote, just an FYI, the Marine Corps, security forces, infantry, etc. have always defended the Pentagon, and it's no secret to what we have in our armories. I can only speak for the actual Marine tactics. Diabolical Witness said that the Pentagon, you cannot expect details about anything. That is the reality. And Jay, I think you know about this. And I agree. I don't think we're ever going to get any information from the government about the Pentagon, considering what the Pentagon is, you know, to this country and our defenses. I do agree that we're probably never going to get anything. And I will say that is unfortunate that we can't even get a picture of the aircraft or, you know, whatever went into the side of the Pentagon. I wish that we could get that. And then, Jeremy, you and I had a conversation about how you viewed that the 4 segments were presented and what you liked about it. And that kind of touches on what Jory said about his segment. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jeremy?
Yeah. Can
you tell the listeners what you thought about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty along the lines of what Jory was saying. So my episode was the first one, and I think I would arguably say it's not even really a 9/11 episode. It's kind of like doesn't really have anything to directly do with 9/11. It's just a lot of history and backstory involving the key players and documents that just kind of give you an idea of what, you know, the protocol that if 9/11 and the conspiracy theories are right, what the government's mindset is as far as things like that goes. So mine was very history oriented. It wasn't even directly about 9/11. So I was coming at it from a history point of view, and then you came in with the actual physics and mathematics of the towers falling and the whole events in New York. And then Rob came at it at a kind of like an outside angle, you know, from someone who's not American. And, you know, the Pentagon is definitely that one. I mean, it's not as unknown as World Trade Center 7, but it's definitely not in the limelight as far as 9/11 knowledge is concerned. So to have him do that, it's kind of like a refreshing outlook on the events that took place. And then Jory's is totally it's an emotional connection with the people that, you know, lost their lives, and it gives you it eliminates the history, it eliminates the science, it eliminates, you know, borders. It's just about what happened to human beings on a day that, you know, hurt a lot of people and changed a lot of people's lives forever. So I think we hit all the bases as far as the series went, and I was really proud of that.
I am really proud of that as well. I hate to say that about myself ever, but I really am proud of each and every one of you, and for the way that every single one of us, it's so interesting because before it ever started, I had a hard time trying to figure out how we were going to divide up the segments. And then it came to me, we'll just do the historical precedents, the events leading up to 9/11. We'll do each plane. Well, and the towers took 2 planes, so you understand. We'll do each event.
Yeah.
And break it up into those segments, which was perfect because we had a perfect amount of people for that. And it's so interesting to me that 4 people, 4 different ages, 4 different points of view, literally a point of view from not even in this country, went our separate ways and came back with completely different angles for their podcasts. Not one of us, or not 2 of us, came at the same angle.
It was such a weird thing. We didn't even like intend on having that theme like change.
No.
It was
weird. There was no plan for that at all. Yeah. So I was really proud that everybody came at theirs, not even knowing how the angle that anybody else was coming from, but how they wanted their segment to be viewed. And I think it ended up being perfect to have. And I said before it started that I was going to be interesting because there were so many different, you know, like the age you were when it happened, and the age Jory was, and the age I was, and the fact that Rob wasn't in the country. There was going to be a lot of different points of view. Like you said, you thought that calling 911 stemmed from 9/11.
Yeah.
You know, so it was coming from a lot of different views, and I really feel so proud of you guys that you put in the hard work and really went all out for your discussion and your segment, and that we were all completely different, and yet there was so much to learn from everybody. So I really want to thank you guys for that. Okay, so and Jay and Diabolical Witness are becoming best friends now.
Rob, are you there?
Rob's disconnected, but I'm working on getting him back.
He's gone for just a second.
Okay.
So if you want to, if we want to talk about your segment, Rob will be back in just a second.
Okay.
Or we can talk about something else.
I just looked at our live chat thing. I'm like,
while he's gone, before we start on your segment, can I talk about the strange, trivial butterfly effect thing that I told you guys I want to talk about that had to do with
Rasputin.
Oh yeah.
Can I talk about that? Yes.
Can I just say thank you to Jeremy?
Yes.
I'm an idiot.
Why?
What happened?
I got myself all muddled up and couldn't get back in.
Oh.
I was locked out.
Oh. Well, how did you get back in?
I pulled him in.
Jeremy did it.
Oh, Jeremy pulled him in. Thank you.
Jeremy did it sorry for me and let me back in.
No problem. Just message me. If that happens again, just message me and I'll pull you in.
All right, nice one. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
No problem.
You were having a Tracy moment.
Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, how I get kicked out all the time. Somehow I have to get back in. Rob, did you hear what I said about how I appreciated, and Jeremy said first that he appreciated how everybody's segments were different and from different angles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really,
Jeremy
really
mentioned
cool.
that to me last week, and I thought that was really a thoughtful way of seeing it. And so I wanted him to say that to everybody. All right, well, I'll put off my trivia for a moment. And I know you guys are just chomping at the bit. But we can talk about Jory's segment. All right,
Okay.
Anybody want to start? Oh, Diabolical Witnesses, we love Rob.
Thank you.
We Love Rob Parade is tomorrow, by the way, Diabolical Witness.
That's
At
right.
last-
Surprise.
at last somebody-
All peacock feathers are banned from the event.
Chupacabras
so
are.
Yeah.
Chupacabras. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned.
No peacock feathers, no spirit boards.
Jay says 13 weeks ago I couldn't spell Marine. Today I am one. Well, thank you.
Spell a what?
Marine. Thank you.
Marine.
Thank you for your service, Jay. And Diabolical Witness says he's a recovering government contractor at the DOE for 10 years. Thank you, guys.
Did he say he's recovering?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you have to go to AA for that?
My husband was also a recovering private government contractor for a while, right here in the Falls. So, thank you guys for letting us know that part too. I appreciate that. Everybody's getting cozy in the chat. I'm a little jealous. Nobody loves me, but everybody loves Rob.
Because you don't have
There you
British
go.
accent.
That's it. I know. If I had one, it would be a lot better. And Rob says mine isn't very good, so.
This what's not very good. You're
What?
singing.
Oh, Jay says we love your voice. Jay, thank you.
All right,
I think this podcast
Jay
is
and I
going.
are having a moment right now.
that's enough. Let's talk about my segment.
Let's
We're
talk about
wasting
human
time.
connection.
Let's talk about human connection, not
Yes,
just.
I'm
human-
making a human connection.
Yeah, we'll do that in your. This is podcast time.
And Victor says that he will, when he gets 1,000 subs, he's going to be a regular donor for my Patreon. And Victor, I appreciate that very much. Victor is such a huge fan of mine. I think Victor's been a sub of mine since I had like 39 subs on my channel. So that's been a minute. And I appreciate that. Jay. Anyway. Moving
Can I ask
along.
a question quickly?
No, I'm talking to Jay. Yes.
Oh my God,
You keep saying so.
Dad, if you're listening, get in there and shut this.
Yeah, Victor says he's been a sub of mine since March 2016, and my very first video ever was March 1st of 2016.
What do you mean? What do you mean by sub? Because that means something else in this country.
It does. I mean,
Yeah, well, subs like a sandwich from Subway.
Oh, well, it means that here too, but it means that here too, but he's been subscribed to me.
Oh, subscribed. Right.
Subscribed.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a Exeter.
I thought you was calling him a sandwich.
No, I was calling Jay that. He says, Ms. Light, shall we have another late night comedy session? Sorry for my radio face. All right. Okay. I'm married.
This is getting way off course.
Someone shut this down now, producer Jeremy.
I'm out of control.
Diabolical Witness was subscriber 232. Oh my gosh, you guys. Thank you so much. That's amazing. I think I was my first subscriber. I think I subscribed to myself. Oh, no, I'm not going to lie. Anyway.
I feel like I'm proper respect for the topic right now. Miss Exit Light.
I'm sorry. I veered off topic. All you got to do is send me a compliment. And I'm like, hello.
You were the greatest mom I ever had. Get back on topic.
Okay. Let's go. Let's talk about Jory's podcast.
Oh, finally. Oh, okay.
All right. Anybody want to talk about what they learned or comments they have, and anything about Jory's podcast? Anything at all? Somebody put greatest mom ever.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many
mom ever. Go ahead.
Jory.
Yes, Rob.
How many moms do you actually have?
If you want to get, well, I only have one blood-related mom, but if you want to get technical, I've got like 5, 6 moms. So
yes, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot of side.
Yes, he does. He has a mother-in-law.
I have
partner.
I have 2 mother-in-laws. Then I have godmother-in-law. Then once my father-in-law marries, that's another mother-in-law.
He's surrounded by women.
Surrounded by women.
Lucky you.
Right?
Okay. Let you talk about your podcast now.
Okay, so I will say this about Jory's podcast. I really found it to be extremely touching. And to hear the minute by minute of information about what was happening minute by minute on the plane and who they were talking to and what they were hearing, I just thought that was enough to make me feel like I was just going to cry. Because, like Jeremy had said, in our other segments, I went scientifically, and Rob, Rob's plane happened to hit a part of the Pentagon that luckily there wasn't hardly any people in, but even then, of course, obviously there was a loss of lives and people on the plane and whatnot. And but Jory's really hit on talking about the fear and how they were trying to reach out to loved ones, and I just thought that was exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, I was, as you guys know, I was pretty deathly sick that day, so I was laying in bed in the fetal position, crying and trying not to vomit. So that pretty much sums up how I felt about Jory's show that night. It was pretty touching and really sobering. I think that's the best way I could explain it. We joke around a lot on the podcast, and we do a lot as far as different points of views and different pieces of information, and I think the chat brings a lot into it as well. But to sit there with Jory, as like you said, he went step by step, minute by minute, talking about what these people went through. That's very sobering, and I think it was probably my favorite for that fact.
Yeah, I agree. It was very, very touching and really hard to listen to, which doesn't mean, which especially means that we should listen to it, because it really brings to the forefront that, and we had mentioned, the firefighters and the police department and the people that who also lost their lives and were working to save lives and ended up losing their lives, and even since, because of getting cancer from asbestos and all of that. And but to know that plane flew around for was it an hour and a half?
It was just under an hour. It was about 5. No, it was a little over an hour. Yeah, takeoff to crash. It was a little over an hour.
So, I mean, to really listen to the fact that they went through their first initial panic, to being in the air so long that they finally came around to, all right, we're going to do something. And we're so brave. And, the other planes those people, of course, had to have known that they were flying into the Trade Center for a short amount of time. I mean, but long if you're on that plane, right? But we didn't get to hear the conversation and the panic and the last phone calls, although we did hear some from the towers, the people leaving messages. I think I'm going to die, and all that. It's so horrific that no matter who is responsible, and I don't think we've pointed fingers at all about who was responsible. I hope that it boils down to that these were human lives. And that was what the terrorist attack did. It didn't forget the buildings falling down, forget the Pentagon and all the questions about where's the wings. The end result was that we lost thousands of people, thousands. And there were so many women who were currently pregnant at the time, whose children were born into the world not knowing their fathers, and mothers who left children, and sons and daughters. And that is the reality of what that terrorist attack did, took away the love of so many people.
I had a lot of, prior to going live on that podcast, that even up to us doing the little pre-meeting, literally before Jeremy does the countdown, I was panicking because I had so much information. I knew basically what I wanted to talk about, but I didn't know the dimensions of what I wanted to talk about, if that makes sense.
Right.
And something just drew me to that aspect of the information that I had, the minute by minute, the plane takes off, terrorists take over, people start calling their family, people start making phone calls wherever they can. Something just drew me to that part of the information. It felt like I was compelled, I had to talk about it. All the rest of the stuff that was like, okay, I'll touch on like the conspiracy theory stuff. This is the section I want to talk about. And then like the very beginning, it was like, I know I want to talk about that. But like that minute by minute description, it was the only part of the podcast that was like my attention immediately was pointed to that. And I felt like it had to be talked about. It had to be touched on. It needed to go out to everybody listening, because up to this point, we had been discussing physics, we had been discussing history, we had been discussing Rob's point of view from being in England and the information he found on the Pentagon. But to really connect with these people on a human level and get that feeling in our gut, what would you do?
Right.
If you were flying for whatever reason, if it was a business trip, if you were going to go see your family for the first 10 years, whatever reason, you're flying. Your day is. And then these guys show up, take over the plane, and essentially tell you, or at least give you the impression you're going to die. What do you do?
Right.
And these people handled it the best way that they thought they could. Fortunately, due to circumstances that we talked about a little bit, like we can't really figure out from the recordings if they were able to break into the cockpit. If they were, it's being said that they nosedived. If they weren't able to, it was saying that the terrorists nosedived the plane. Either way, like, these people came to a decision, and I always keep doing this in your podcast, but it boils down to what we as humans do when we're in groups, and that's to survive. They were in a group. They conscientiously together all looked at each other and said, let's at least try to survive. And that's what they tried to do. And I think that's what I would have done too. I would have thought to myself, I need to at least try and survive. So
I would like to think I would, but I don't know what I would have done.
I think you say that as an individual because it's easy for us to form opinions as individuals.
Right.
But when we become part of a group, our sway easily because we're a part of a group. We want to do what's best for the group or with the group. So I think it's easy for you to say right now you're not sure what you would have done. You probably wouldn't have had that instinctual mode kick in. But I think if you were to put yourself in a situation where you're with the group.
That's true. And
I find myself in a situation too where I find myself influenced when I'm in group situation.
Right.
If I had like 3 or 4 people look at me and be like, are you with us? You want to go? You want to rush this guy? You want to try and take him down? I think to be a part of the group, survive, I would have been, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I don't think at that point I would have had an individual brain turned on. I think I would have had a group mentality turned on of I'm joining these people and we're going.
Right.
And we're going to go take this guy down. We're going to save this plane. So,
Jay says, I re-enlisted because of that day. Very sad time, but no regrets. Katrina was a close second, and some conspiracies at that place. And then Jay said, you did a great job. All of you should be proud. You never once discredited the story and never bored us. Thank you, Semper Fi Light Crew. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. That was very nice. James said, my husband said, but how many people on that plane didn't fight and were passive? Well, probably several. And because they probably felt safe in the hands of the people who stood up and said, we're gonna try and take care of you.
But that's assuming there were people who were passive.
Yeah, and there might not have been. And really, I mean, if you think about it, with the numbers, they had the numbers.
Well, if you break it down, the plane in total had, I can't remember the exact number. I think it was 44 total. That's 40 passengers. Well, that's 40 people who were supposed to be there, and then the 4 hijacked.
Mm-hmm.
So excluding maybe some elderly, let's say there's at least 10 plane. Just to throw it out there. I don't know. But let's say there's at least 10. That's still 30 people who are probably capable of at least in a group defending themselves against 4 guys who had knives and lighters.
Right. But they also had the threat of a bomb.
Right, but I think you kind of weigh your options. Like, kind of probably get to a point where you feel like either way you're going to die. Either they're going to detonate bombs that they have and explode, or they're going to crash it. Either way, you're going to die. So why not take your chances chances of at least maybe assuming the bomb is false, bluff, and
Right.
taking control of the plane.
Yep. Right.
Because what do you have to lose? Even if the bomb isn't false, you're going to die.
Right. Right. And I think at that point, we saw their adrenaline kick in.
Yeah, it becomes a fight. It boils down to that basic fight or flight instinct. Do you fight or do you cower and die? And that we know of, these people chose to fight. And I think that's what makes them heroes. It's not, you can, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You can believe that they were trying to be patriotic and save them. Whatever you want to believe about them is fine. It's your belief system. But to the core, these people just chose to fight to live. And that's where they have my respect. And that's what they chose to live.
Right. And honestly, even if there were people who didn't, they're really no less heroic to me, because I can totally understand also being frozen in fear.
Well, and that's to be expected. You're 1,000 feet in this tiny cramped cabin, being told you're going to die. There are people just freeze, not, and it's not by choice. It's because that's what your body does out of fear.
Yes, this is totally not even close, but I experienced that on a train track almost a year ago when I fell on a train track, and there was a plane coming. A train coming,
oh, God,
yeah.
I hope not.
a train coming. Did I say plane?
Said plane.
A train coming, and I literally could not move. And Jeremy can attest because he was there. And if it wasn't for Jeremy and my youngest son, who literally pulled me off the track, I would have been run over by a train. So I understand. I never grasped the concept of being so scared that your body was literally paralyzed. And so even the people who were maybe paralyzed with fear, they're no less heroic because they went through it the same, and it's just horrific to think about, and maybe even like harder to think about people paralyzed in fear and how horrible that would be, so I really liked this segment. There's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that you remember last week, guys, when I was saying during Joy's segment that there was a fifth airplane? Well, guess what? Jeremy found an article about the fifth airplane and a news clip about the fifth airplane. And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to read the article real quickly. And this was written on May 16th, 2011. And it says, have you ever heard about the airliner which was ordered back to the gate on 9/11 when the terrorist attacks began, only to have 4 young Arab passengers jump off the plane, after which box cutters and Al-Qaeda documents were found in their abandoned bags? I've heard this story before, but since it was never reported by the U.S. government and not mentioned by the 9/11 Commission in their official report, I thought it might be another of those urban myths, until now. Yesterday's Wilmington, Delaware News Journal featured a front-page article on the Delaware Air National Guard's first female general, Carol Timmons, who was promoted to that rank at a ceremony on Saturday. General Timmons has had a long career as a pilot, including time as a commercial pilot for Pan Am and the United Airlines. The profile of General Timmons recounts that on the morning of September 11th, 2001, she was the first officer on United Airlines Flight 23, preparing to take off from New York's JFK Airport bound for Los Angeles. The plane had already pulled away from the gate and was taxiing down the runway when the airport was shut down and the crew was ordered to secure the cockpit. Timmons confirmed that as the pilot grabbed the crash axe, She jumped from her seat and started barricading the cockpit door. From the other side of the barricade, the cabin crew relayed the concern about 4 young Arab men in the first class who became agitated when the takeoff was canceled and fled from the plane when it returned to the terminal. They literally jumped out of the airplane. Box cutters and Al-Qaeda documents were later found in their luggage. Timmons, the pilot, and the rest of the crew were repeatedly questioned by the FBI, though the findings were never shared. The pilot concluded that Flight 23 would have been the next plane hijacked by terrorists if the airport shutdown order had been delayed. The FBI asks questions, General Timmons is quoted as saying, but they don't tell you things. Why wouldn't the U.S. government want to report the incident? Why didn't the 9/11 Commission mention it in their official report? Were they concerned about panicking the public? Were they trying to apprehend the 4 passengers who fled? Why maintain official silence about the incident a decade later? And of course, now it's been even more than that. And then there's a news clip that Jeremy, are you gonna be able to put that clip? Is Maya gonna be able to put that clip? Okay. And in that news clip, the news reporters were talking about not only Flight 23, but saying that there was reports of other planes that were stopped that had hijackers on it. So thank you, Jeremy, for not letting me hang out there and look like a crazy person talking about this airplane that I saw on the runway.
Yeah, do you remember what I sent you? I said, there's still not a lot of information on it, but at least you can send this and show people that you're not crazy.
That you're not crazy. Yeah, I appreciated that. So,
Tracy,
thank you. Yes.
Do you know, obviously we know about the planes that hit the World Trade Center, the 2 planes that hit the World Trade Center buildings.
Yes.
And we know about the alleged plane that hit the Pentagon.
Yes.
Do you think that either the plane you were just talking about now, which was stopped, or the one that was brought down by the passengers, do you think that either one of those 2 planes could have been meant for the Building 7?
No.
Near the,
well, you know what?
And because it didn't happen, it was blown up anyway.
Interesting. That's an interesting idea.
That's actually, wow, yeah.
That's actually an interesting idea, Rob. So they had to bring it down anyway.
Yeah.
Which would explain why there was already the beams cut at the 45-degree angle and the detonation ready to go. That's interesting, Rob. I don't know, maybe. And they said that the White House and the Capitol building were also on the list of being targets. One of those planes was supposed to go to one of those targets. They said it's likely it was the Capitol building. But the news report says that there was at least Flight 23 and accounts of other planes that had terrorists on there. So maybe so. Maybe they would hit the White House and the Capitol building and Tower number 7. Who knows? But I wanted to tell you guys because I very clearly remember there being that 5th plane, and I'm so grateful that Jeremy found those articles. Moderator Maya has put them up in the video so that you can take a look at them. And Jay says, I hate the fact that this started at Logan, 9 miles from where I grew up. Yeah, isn't that strange how that can happen? And you feel a special closeness about that. Anyway, so what do you guys think about the fact that there were other planes, and at least this one plane, and why it wasn't mentioned in the 9/11 Commission? I mean, they did jump off the plane, and there were box cutters and Al-Qaeda information in their stuff.
I can't say why they would keep it a secret, other than, like you mentioned earlier, perhaps maybe at the time they were trying to find them.
Right.
But it would. I mean, I can see why there wouldn't be a fifth plane. They obviously were. This was a well thought out tactical plan, and if they had multiple targets, which you were saying included the Capitol building and the White House, well, the plane that I talked about, I believe, was probably targeting the Capitol building, which would have left the White House at least one more target. So,
right.
It's definitely believable that they were.
Yeah, and where are these passengers on Flight 23? Where are they?
Yeah.
Did they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement? Or what? Because like I said, there was witnesses that saw them being taken off the plane and taken to a now I can't think of a hangar. So what happened to them? Where are they? And was it a slip that this pilot who was getting this award and everything just happened to mention that she was on that plane? Did somebody go, oh, God dang it. Now we got to sue her for $1 million. So weird that information was let out. It's just, it's just one of the strangest things to me. And Rob J says, Rob, great question on that. Great job on that question. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. That would make a lot of sense for why it was ready to go. And I mean, imagine the terror of 3. I mean, it was bad enough with 2 planes attacking. We got to see the second one live, and a third one. I mean, that would have been. I'm just curious as to why it was never showed up on any reports or is talked about, or why the people don't talk about it. It's just strange to me. Anybody else? Before I do my my little weird trivia thing. Did you guys? I don't want to use the word enjoy, but did you find it interesting to, this many years later, look into your segments and also hear about the other segments?
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that conspiracy bug bit me again after all these years. I took one little look back into, Operation Northwoods, and I'm like, oh, they got me again. Here I am, just sitting in front of my computer at 4 a.m., just deep in it, just deep.
Yes.
Pupils dilated.
With your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it to be very interesting. I really liked it that everybody brought new information to the table that we didn't all know. So I liked that part. I thought that was interesting too. And I'm glad that you guys, the listeners, thought we did it well and respectfully, and I hope you guys found it interesting too. I'm gonna do my little my strange little butterfly effect. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Queen Victoria II had wait a second. Jay says, between the 5th plane and NORAD has me stumped. Yeah, me too. And the fact that NORAD was doing the war games and stuff at the exact same time about airplanes attacking New York and stuff. That's there's so many quote unquote coincidences that eventually coincidences start looking like a plan. If we all don't want people to know we know each other, but we show up at the same bar at the same time and sit at the same table, it stops looking like a coincidence. I don't know why I picked bar. I'm sorry. And Diabolical Witness says, I went to Disneyland 5 days after 9/11. It was pre-booked, and we were one of the first to fly out of Portland at all. The plane was nearly empty. Yeah, I bet. I took a flight. I think it was. Let's see. That was. It had to have been like a year and a half after that. I took a flight from Phoenix to Idaho, and I was scared. You know, when you're looking at everybody on the plane and like, does that look like somebody who could bring an airplane down? Does that look like somebody who could bring an airplane down? And then they had that shoebox bomber guy who looked like your next door neighbor. And then there's like, now you realize there's nobody who looks like a guy who's going to bring a plane down now. Could just be anybody. That, which I think was one of the purposes, by the way, of the terrorist attack was to keep us in fear. Okay, so here we go. Trivia. Queen Victoria had a very rare disease, and it was called, hold on a second. Diabolical Witnesses. Okay, Brian says, everybody had that look in their eyes, like, just make a move and you're done. You know what I started to do when I would fly after that, Brian? I would look for the guy or woman who looked like the air marshal. Like, I want to sit by that person. Who looks like an air marshal? Of course you can't. You can't. Nobody knows. But yeah, I think everybody was ready to fight somebody who stood up or said something wrong at that point. Like, I'm going to take you down. Okay, so by the way, Rob has to go. So Rob, you're gonna miss my cool trivia.
I'll just wait for 5 minutes and I'll listen to it.
Okay. It's very simple. Here we go. Queen Victoria had a very rare disease, and it was called, Jeremy?
I wasn't the one who came up with it, or who knew it.
Oh,
hemophilia.
Hemophilia.
There you go. I was like, I don't know.
She was a hemophiliac, and so you could bleed to death, from that in those days. And she went on to have 9 children. And she gave this gene to, I think, 4 of her children. One of them was a girl who married Tsar Nicholas. Now, they had a child. They had, and this is the Disney movie, was about them. Anastasia was about this family. Okay. So they had a child who was a hemophiliac, and they basically held themselves in their castle and hardly ever went out. And so they were the Tsar of Russia. Russia had czars back then. It was under like a monarchy sort of a rule. Okay. So they kept their son in the house all the time, and along comes Rasputin. Thank you. Along comes Rasputin, who called himself like a mystical healer. People were afraid of him, and he could use poisons and whatnot. And he had convinced Tsar Nicholas and his family that, and Anastasia, if you're watching the Disney video, that he was the only person alive that could save the life of this child. So they kept him, and there was a lot of rumblings by the people that they did not trust that this man who called himself a holy mystical man had control basically of the Tsar of Russia. So they overthrew him, the Tsar. Well, Rasputin had come from Pakistan, and they sent him back, to get out. Well, that caused a rift between Russia, who then stopped using czars and became more like the government they have right now. And it caused a rift between Pakistan and Russia. And eventually that boiled over into a war in which the United States armed the Pakistani rebels to fight Russia. The Pakistani rebel leader, sounds like Star Wars, was Osama bin Laden. And of course, as we know, Osama bin Laden was responsible for the 9/11 attacks. So it's a very strange connection that goes all the way to Queen Victoria being a hemophiliac, down through Rasputin and the anger causing the war, and then eventually 9/11 happened. It's the butterfly effect. I thought that was interesting.
That's crazy.
Nobody? It is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Jory's not impressed. Yeah, I know. It takes a minute to get there.
I was like, do I change the title?
But it was weird. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's real.
It was because of Rasputin that there was this anger in the first place that ended up being in a war. Where we stepped in, and the next thing you know, Osama bin Laden. So, you guys, tomorrow night at dinner, if you're sitting around with people who aren't children, you can be like, guess what I know that you don't know? And maybe you'll get this question right at Trivial Pursuit. You're welcome. Are we done?
I think so.
Okay. Jory, we went to 2 hours.
We did.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I want to see in the comments real fast. Okay. Next week we'll be having a podcast. It will be not about 9/11, completely different topic, and it will be Rob and I. And I think it's going to have stuff to do with paranormal and scary stuff because I'm feeling very Halloweenish already. If you are not subscribed and you would like to be subscribed. Hey, Rob, do you have to go now? Is Rob gone?
He's muted.
Okay. Bye, Rob.
Bye-bye, Rob.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Robin, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. 82% of the people who watch my channel are not subscribed. That is a huge amount of people. So, hey guys, just take a minute. It's totally free. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to sell your information. Just go ahead and subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. That's super important so that we can be recommended to other viewers. And if you would like to be notified of my content, please click that bell. I do not upload every day or 2 or 3 times a day, so it's not going to be dinging all the time. Mad Meerkat. Hi, Mad Meerkat. You come right at the end. Rob and I both have groups. If moderator Maya could put the groups links on there, that would be awesome. That's on Facebook. Please come join those. Rob puts a lot of information about paranormal stuff on there, and it's really good. He does such a great job, and I think we all like paranormal stuff. If you would like to become and support this channel and become a member of Patreon, that would be very much appreciated. And there are perks like having your own chat room and also being able to call in and speak to us, which would be a lot of fun. And is there anything else that I'm supposed to say, you guys?
Not that I know of.
That covered it.
So.
And again, I want to say for people who are catching the end, I'm the only channel that you're going to find that has original creepypasta or suspenseful story content. I write them myself. All the other channels you listen to, they get them from the same.
They're garbage. Nobody's
I'm not going to say that.
Us.
Hey,
this is a diss right now.
I have a question.
Yes.
Tracy.
Yes.
Do you write your own content, Tracy?
I write my own content. Thank you. And you guys aren't going to find that anywhere else. I'm the only channel that does that. And the reason is because they take there's like 4-5 pages, main pages, where you get creepy content stories that have been posted there, and you're allowed to take them and narrate them. So you're going to hear the same ones quite often. That never happens with mine because I don't post my stories on any of those pages. So you're never going to hear somebody else read my story. And if you do, please let me know. So please pass it on to people who are tired of hearing the same stories over and over again and want original content.
Let them know that her creepypastas are non-GMO, they're vegan friendly, no gluten. We got the best creepypastas here, okay?
That's right. And they're organic.
Organic, yes.
Yeah.
Homegrown.
They're homegrown, that's right. So if you'd like to pass it on, you guys, I would really appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who comes and supports these podcasts and my channel and leaves comments on my content. I can't express how much it means to me. And I try to get back to everybody. And if I don't, go ahead and wave your hand and say, hey, I posted, and I will post back to you.
Keep in mind, Exit Light's a vampire, so you're better off.
You're better off what?
Uh-oh.
Trying to contact Exit Light
at night, George. Yeah,
you're not gonna,
yes. George's cutting out really bad.
Am
go
I?
Ahead and say it. Yeah, go ahead and say it again.
I was gonna say, if you're trying to contact Exit Light, try at night. She's a vampire.
Yes, I am nocturnal. A lot of you will know that if you leave a message for me at 3:00 in the morning, you're probably gonna get a message right back. So if I appreciate you guys doing that gets attention to my channel and gets it recommended. And even if I'm not getting monetized, they still do recommend if there's comments and likes and all that good stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it very much. And we're also going to be doing merchandise. So that's where the Patreon money is going to go to help us fund merchandise that we can do for fun giveaways and for you guys to buy if you would like to. We already have some ideas and some stuff made up. And I guess that is it. I'll see you guys next week. And thank you, Jory.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And Jeremy, you guys, has put in a lot of work on Discord to have us switch over to Discord. We're on Discord right now, and he's put a lot of work in there so that when you guys want to call in, it will go smoothly, and so that you guys can have your own room if you're a Patreon supporter. And I really want to thank him because he's put in a lot of time. Jory is awesome. Jeremy is awesome. That is what Diabolical Witness said.
Well, thank you, Witness.
Thank you.
Also, for the month of October, I'm going to be interviewing Diabolical Witness and talking about some of the strange things he's seen and heard through what he does. And he has a channel on YouTube. So look him up because it's really good. I really want to give a shout out because he does he's really, really talented, really, really good, and really, really cares about his content. So I'm going to say good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.